Hi everyone, this is Emily Leiphart here for Tailored Expressions, and in today's video I'm sharing projects using the ingredients from the Wheatfield Dreams Card Making Kit. I love Laurie Craig's realistic illustrations of a sunflower and wheat. These are so detailed but easy to color, or not, as you'll see with the 3 cards I'll be sharing in this video. I also love the encouraging sentiments in this kit, so let's take a look at what you get. The main Wheatfield Dreams stamp set includes the 2 large images of wheat and a sunflower, a small pattern of 5 interlocking diamonds, and 3 sentiments, and I used all 3 sentiments in this video. Also included are the Wheatfield Dreams dies, which cut out the wheat and sunflower images. Next is the burlap background, which covers an entire A2 panel. I love anything that mimics natural fabric, like burlap and linen, so I was so happy to see this cool background, especially the way it gradually fades away. There are 10 foil-lit Wheatfield cards, and these are meant to be used with transfer foil and a laminator, or a foil applicator like the Mink machine. If you don't have these materials, that's okay. You can still use them plain on your cards, cut with an intricate border to dress it up, or even color it with your favorite pencils or markers. As always, there are 6 envelopes, and this kit's colors are sweet basil, honey, and mulled wine. I drew inspiration for all 3 of my cards from these colors. There are also 6 envelope seals, 3 each of the wheat and sunflower. The words on the seals read, "Sealed with love." You'll also receive a 1/2 ounce jar of copper embossing powder, and you'll see me use it with the burlap background. Tailored Expressions has added 3 new colors to its lineup of watercolors, and they are mulled wine, honey, and sweet basil. Heather Nichols already shared a video for this kit using the new watercolors, so be sure to catch her video. I'll be using Copic markers here. Please note that the watercolors are not included with the kit, but you can purchase them separately if you'd like to watercolor your kit images following the kit's color theme. Now let's get started. First, I stamped 3 sets of the sunflower and wheat images on sugar cube cardstock using Oreo ink. I set those aside for coloring and move on to my next set of stamped images, which will be ombre stamped with inks that coordinate with the colors of the kit. The Misty stamping tool makes this process fast and easy, and the results for outline images are so gorgeous. For the wheat, I start with Dijon at the tips, then move to honey ink. Towards the bottom of the stalk, I use mulled wine. For the stems and leaves, I use avocado and sweet basil inks. I don't worry about the transition between ink colors except between honey and mulled wine, and that's where I use a sponge dabber to blend the transition. I add these same ink colors twice to get a seamless blend, and the mini ink cubes make it easy to place a bit of ink on small areas of these images. For the sunflower, I use Dijon on the tips of the petals and honey as I move towards the center. I ink up the center with mulled wine ink, and again use avocado and sweet basil inks on the stem. I make 2 sets of these ombre stamped images. On the second set, I was able to ink up the 2 images at the same time using each color, since I knew exactly where they needed to go. Aren't they gorgeous? And there's no need for coloring. I love that. I don't always want to color, so it's nice to have this option. Now I'm going to use Copic colors to color all 3 sets of wheat and sunflower images. I'm only going to show you how I colored 1 set. As always, I'm going to speed up this coloring process 20 times and put on some music. After all of the images are colored, I can use the coordinating dies to cut out the images. I just love how they look, especially since the dies are so intricate and cut out the spaces between the wheat stalks. Don't they look amazing, all lined up and ready to be incorporated into card designs? For my first card, I've cut a 4" by 5 1/4 panel from sugar cube cardstock. I've also cut 1" 2" and 2 1/4" panels of sweet basil, mulled wine, and honey cardstock. I'm using liquid glue to attach these to the panel, and then I'll use my guillotine trimmer to trim off the excess. After determining the layout of my images on the background, I prepare to stamp the sentiment, but then I decide that I want to add some detail to the color-blocked background. I use the largest of the diagonal stitched rectangle stacklets, and then I can stamp the sentiment. Since the sentiment will be stamped on the darkest section, I will need to heat emboss it with white embossing powder. I do a test stamp on acetate to make sure it's straight. Then I use an anti-static tool before stamping it with sugar cube ink and heat embossing it with white embossing powder. Next, I can assemble the card by attaching the images on the panel. I use foam tape on the tops of the images for a bit of dimension, but use liquid glue to adhere the bottoms flat to the card. Normally, in this type of design, I would trim off the overhanging pieces flush with the edge of the panel, but this time I wanted them to extend all the way to the edges of the card base itself, so I attached the panel with a tape runner before using my guillotine trimmer to remove the overhanging parts. Now my first card is done. For my second card, I'm using removable tape to secure a piece of mulled wine cardstock before inking up the burlap background with watermark ink and heat embossing it with the copper embossing powder included in the kit. Using the third smallest die from the stitched circle stacklets, I want to cut out an opening for the sentiment. This sort of mimics a moon in the scene. At this point, I'm not sure about the green card base, and I end up swapping it out for a black card base. On this card, I adhere the wheat to the embossed panel with mini glue dots, and then trim off the overhanging pieces flush with the panel. After deciding on a black card base, I pop the panel on with foam tape, then secure the sentiment with liquid glue. The gold stars from my last video were still on my desk, so I attached 3 of those around the sentiment. If you missed that video, the stars were from the Gathered Stars die. For my third card, I chose a sweet basil card base with a slightly smaller 3 3/4 by 5-inch panel. To create the sentiment for this card, I wanted it to be on a vellum tag so as not to obstruct any of the images. I used my anti-static tool before stamping the sentiment with black pigment ink and heat embossing it with clear embossing powder. I used the smallest of the tag stacklets 2 dies to create a tag from the sentiment, then used a 1/8 inch hole punch. I tried a few different types of strings and cords before settling on a white one. I also tried stringing the strings through the hole, but in the end decided that tying a bow separately and securing it on top of the hole on the tag was best. I secured the 3 Copic colored sunflowers to each other, and again popped up the tops with foam tape and used liquid glue to secure the stems flat on the card. I attached the vellum tag and bow with mini glue dots, and now my third card is done. I loved using this kit and all of its beautiful elements. They work so well together, and it was easy to be inspired by these colors. They're so rich and perfect for fall and year-round encouragement cards. I hope you enjoyed this video and you're inspired to create with the Wheatfield Dreams Kit. I expect this kit to be as popular as both of Lori's Field Notes kits, so be sure to grab one while you can. You can find all of these products in the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.